Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and welcome to another office hours for the FastStore beta. My name is Victor, and I'm a software engineer here at VTEX. I'm currently working on the FastStore team, and I'll also be your host for today's event. So let's get started. Okay, so our first section for today is the announcement section. In this section, we'll be bringing you the latest news from the team to keep you up to date with what we've been working on, maybe even some cool events coming up, or sometimes just ask for feedback. And today, we actually have me. I'll be the one talking about the announcements. And this one is kind of big because it's regarding the July release notes. So let's go over them. And I'll also call George here to comment over them.
Yeah, I'll just be commenting. You take it away, Vito.
Okay, great. Right. So first we start off with the search query has been enhanced to allow cross-selling and upselling of products. This is pretty cool. Actually, I know that a lot of people were implementing this, they were having to extend our schema to support this stuff. So now there you go. You have it by default.
Yeah.
Uh,
And just to make sure people know what cross-selling and upselling means in this context, right? So similar products or products, people who bought this product also bought whatever product. So there are some things that we already did in our search API that provide this information. Now you can build shelves, for instance, with that kind of query. I guess that's just the general summary, right? Like the biggest updates. But let's go one by one, right? FastStore UI, what's new?
All right. So for the FastStore UI, we have a new component, the product title component. This is kind of self-explanatory, but it's kind of like it's meant to be sort of a header for the product that you're showing. So usually used in a product details page or a PDP. So yeah, it was moved to FastStore UI. So now we used to have this on our starters. Now you can find it at FastStore UI along with all the other components, and it now also supports forward refing, actually, right? So you can now pass a ref to the product title component, and that ref will actually be rendered in the HTML because it's going to be forwarded to the children that you pass to it. Okay.
Really nice. So product title is not just the title, right? It's the title, but it has a bunch of other things that are very important. Which promotion is applied, how many % off. You can configure that, right?
Yeah. Like you can customize all of this, but by default, this is its default state. So you have the ref number, you have any promotions that are associated with the product, and the product's name. But again,
the ref you're talking about here is the product reference number in the catalog. It's not the same as forwarding refs inside React, like you're mentioning later on, right? Just so people know it's two different things.
Oh yeah. This ref has nothing to do with this ref. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
This is the React stuff. Like when you passing a reference to child elements. And this is the actual ref number from the catalog. So product reference number.
Awesome.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, now the price range component. This is not a new component. It already existed, but it got kind of a facelift. It changed a bit. It now also uses ref forwarding. So again, forward refing being used for the min and max inputs. So now you can pass references to individually to the mean input and the max input. That allows you to easily control them separately. So it should make it a bit easier to use the component. It can also other components using the price ref can trigger input functions and control the mean and max values. This is useful because now you can the price for in components now it's more like a controlled component. It pretty much just displays stuff, but the whole logic and the controlling can be done outside of it. So you can easily customize it while without having to always create a new price range component, right? So should make it easier to use as well. The look changed a bit, as it says here, like the component now displays the min max values centered above the slider stumps, and allows for more customization. This allows for more customization is because of the CSS. It's now, I'm pretty sure we're now using tokens for it, so it's easier to like select exactly what you want to customize. And it's using the slider component that's already in Store UI, in FastStore UI as well. So that should also help. And yeah, this is like kind of to this is kind of to prevent like a visual glitch. So we just fixed the track position for maximum absolute values that are greater than 100, because like the kind of like if you had values greater than 100, the slider could like kind of overflow. So that would look pretty weird. Now it should be fixed, and we shouldn't have this problem anymore. And by the way, like everything that we're commenting, you can come here in the actual release pages and check out the actual PRs, right?
The code that changed, all the comments, everything. And you can say like, hey, I hate this. Or you can add an emoji like, hey, I celebrate this. So yeah, definitely give us your feedback on how this is going for you.
Yeah, there you go. Awesome. Now, regarding the slider, this is kind of complementary to the one above, right? The slider now also uses ref forwarding for min and max inputs, which is again easier customization for you.
For instance,
and you can also
let me just give you an example, and just let me know if I'm correct, because I've never used reference forwarding in my life, but okay. I assume this is useful. For instance, if you have a search page and for some reason you need to update a bunch of components like the min and max values, or shift where they're like focused in, which is selected, which is not, based on, for instance, loading a URL or clicking something. All these other components can have their state updated by some external reference, right? Is that what this means? When I see other components using the slider can trigger input functions and control the min and max values. Is that kind of the general direction? What's the importance of that?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Like it allowing you to control components via references allows you to it makes it easier for other components to control that one component, and not like, yeah, without having to like be direct, like directly
Parents.
wrapping the component, direct parent. Yeah. And also references are kind of like their value is consistent across component re-renders. So that's also very useful if you want to
keep everything in sync, right? Like all the components that use the same reference.
Yeah, because sometimes state might be tricky, so references might help you a bit there because they're immutable.
Nice.
Not actually immutable, but they're not reset after every re-render. Like state is the way that you update state is a bit different from updating ref. Like ref is kind of like a global variable. And
yeah, like you have one kind of address where you need to look up the value, and that's immutable, but the value itself might change, but it's not like you're not checking every re-render, kind of like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So okay, besides that, we also have new props. The now includes the stat prop that allows you to specify the interval between the input values. Okay, so yeah, like pretty much it allows you to set like you have a slider, like if I take one step in that slider, how much am I actually changing the values, right, between the max and the minimum. So that's why this prop was added. Slider component now displays only rounded values. Yeah, this is again kind of to prevent strange visual behaviors, right? Because if you have like floating point numbers and with not random precision or arbitrary precision, like if we don't set the actual value, we would have like you could have I don't know 3.12345 and it goes on forever, and that looks pretty weird in the UI, right? So we're just using rounded numbers now.
Yeah, you can round to a specified number of places, right? If it makes sense, but
Yeah,
that's something you can set in the component.
yeah, sure. And the thumb elements were repositioned. Yeah, they were repositioned in the DOM so that it makes it a bit easier to like set their individual behaviors when you're passing functions to control those components. All right, so pretty much it with the store with FastStore UI. Quite a bit, quite a bit of changes in mostly three components, but this should make the price range component and the slider component easier to use and easier to customize. And well, you get a brand new component in the project title. So there you go. Hope everyone finds them useful. Awesome. Now for the FastStore API. The FastStore API, we generated new schema types. So this pretty much has to be done every time that we update the like every time that we change the default schema that comes in FastStore API when you try to use the package. It we need to update the TypeScript types that are generated based on that GraphQL schema, right? To keep everything in sync, to make sure that every time you clone the FastStore repo, you don't get like type issues, right? They're always synced up with the schema.
They're generated automatically and they're consistent with everything that's coded everywhere, right? Is that
yes.
How do you generate the schemas though? Is it something that like if you change in your code you could regenerate, or is it something immutable in the FastStore package? Is it something like yarn generate or something else?
Yes, it's exactly that. It's just literally like we run yarn generate before merging a PR.
Got it. So like it's just like that yarn.lock, that those kinds of files that you want to have automatically generated, you want to store, because we don't need everyone to generate the same types, right? So might as well commit them to GitHub.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why we have the generated types there. And it's also like when you install the FastStore API package, you get those types by default. They will ship to you. So
and super useful for documentation because we automatically generate the documentation from that. So thanks for generating the new types.
Awesome, great. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now for VTEX platform. Oh yeah, this we kind of already spoiled down there, up there, but yeah, now we support cross-selling natively. So in the existing search query, the product search query, you can now use like cross-selling features and upselling products.
Yeah, and those are mostly used for shelves, right? So if you want to build a shelf like similar products as expressed in the catalog in the VTEX platform, or accessories or suggestions, those are all things that we can now pull from catalog and display for you in your shelf as needed, just to expose those products.
Yeah, I think people will find this pretty useful. I'm pretty sure I saw like 3 implementations for this in like just
we had some community questions before about that.
Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Okay, so hope this is useful. Now, the new subscribe to newsletter mutation. Yes, this is also something that we expect a lot of people will use, but now we have a mutation that allows you to subscribe users to newsletters, right? And it involves pretty much just saving data to master data, kind of updating the user's preference in master data. And now there you go. Like you had to implement this on your own before. Now it's available.
Quick and easy.
Yeah, just making it easier. And also, we're gonna tackle a question that is about this later on. Oh yeah, this one. New SQ selector related properties added to product group. Okay, so this was kind of I'm actually gonna like go deeper into it during the demo, because this is regarding the SKU selector. But the thing is, we kind of made the product group type that already existed a bit, like we added a new property to it called SKU variations. And this inside these SKU variations, we have these four new properties: all variants by name, slugs map, active variations, and available variations. And pretty much all of this is to make it easier for you to implement an SKU selector component. It made it easier for us, and it will probably make it easier for you as well. Because what we noticed was we already gave you all of the information that you would need to implement an SKU selector on your store, but like the way that the information was structured was not very convenient. So again, I'll go deeper into it during the demo, but basically we noticed that, okay, if we don't change how, like if we don't give you an easier way to like implement your SKU selector, from like already from the way that the data comes from the API, you're gonna have to do a lot of like just converting data into a reasonable format so that you can actually render a SKU selector. So a lot of work would have to be done in the front end, and like every store would have to implement their own. So to make it easier for you, we added this SKU variants and all of these properties. So and now we expect that you won't have to like ask for this four properties, and with that you have a much easier time implementing an SKU selector if you don't want to use ours, because we also added an SKU selector to our starters, not on FastStore UI yet. Okay, so there you go. That's the SKU selector news. Okay, we also fixed a small issue regarding the store offer resolver. The price current field now grabs the same info from the current context sales channel and actually fetches the correct price currency value. There was some mismatch there between the currency that we have in the context, so the actual currency that was active in the sales channel from the store, and the currency that came from like that we were using to look for the price in the API. So now everything should be synced up, and we shouldn't have that issue anymore. Some missing catalog page types are now available. Yeah,
I'm happy about this one. I miss subcategory and collection. That's for sure.
Yeah. I think there were some questions from community regarding this as well, right? Like when we were trying to figure out like if the page that because while trying to like get the page type for a certain page in the catalog to know what should we render, we have like kind of an array of valid page types, and then we check against that array. If it doesn't match, we just return to you that, oh, you try to fetch for like a full text search, for example, which means, oh, the term that you searched didn't match a category, a subcategory, a collection, a cluster. It didn't match anything. It's just a random search. But the problem is we were not considering subcategories, collections, or clusters or product clusters as valid page types. So if you were trying to fetch products from a certain subcategory, it would just error out. Like it would give you that your search for you made a full text search, right? Like the term that searched didn't match anything, and well, that was not expected. So now it should work fine. So subcategories, collections, and product clusters should be fine. Well, pretty much the same thing here. We just detected that this was a problem with every search query that you made. You would run into this problem. Then, if your search query works, but if you ask for the breadcrumb list field inside the search, you would run into exactly the same problem. So again, like these two actually go hand in hand. Now you shouldn't have any problems because the breadcrumb list triggers other requests for checking the page, checking different page types, and again, they would not match because we were not considering these three types as valid types.
Yeah,
So
it's super important
there,
to just keep in mind that when we're in FastStore, anything that is a group of products, we have that abstract type store collection, right? So when we say store
yeah,
collection, it could be a department, it could be a category, it could be a subcategory. And one thing that might be curious for those of you who use VTEX for a while is why do we have collection and cluster as two different types? That's because the APIs for the old collections are different from the new collections. So some cluster is if you created a collection in the old CMS, a really ugly experience, but it works better for some things, and collection is for the new collections. But yeah, definitely check it out, and breadcrumb list will be really useful for navigation and all that stuff. Great stuff.
yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah, like those kind of details. That's what we hope that people will not have to worry about, right? Like they wouldn't they people don't need to know that collection and cluster are kind of the same thing, and we're calling everything collection. Like we purposely chose to just call everything star collection, and like that's
Yeah.
it. That's the
If
type.
you have a group of products, that's where you should be looking at. It's the same kind
Yeah,
of relationship, right? So
yeah.
it's useful. Yeah, well, we have a bunch of new documentation. Definitely check it out. But I think let's move on to questions. I think documentation, you can just
Okay.
read it, right? That's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Awesome.
Go ahead
And
and
oh
read
yeah,
it. Lots of cool stuff to read and learn about.
yeah, yeah, but definitely everyone check out the actual release notes. Like here, you again, you will find the description for everything. You will find the links to the PRs. So if you're curious to see what changes are we making, like okay, for example, this one refactored SDK's code. How? Like how was that done and what changed and everything? If you're curious, you can see it right there. Um, and that's true for like every single release note. We every single item we added the PR, so you can take a look. So that's I guess that's what we have for releases, right?
Yep.
Thanks, George. Thanks
No
for
problem.
coming in there with me. Awesome. So let's move on. And oh yeah, and before we go to the next section, just reminding everyone that we just showed you the release notes, right? But you can keep up to date with what we've been releasing, what we've been working on, by just staying like just checking faster.dev/releases. Usually stuff even comes out there before we bring it to the office hours, so you might actually like already know this stuff. So there you go. Always keep an eye out for faster.dev/releases. Everything new will be posted there. Okay, awesome. So let's move on to our next section, and this is the Ask the Community section. This section is all about you. It's all about the community, our developer community. This is where we bring some of your questions that are coming from VTEX community here to the office hours, so that we can give more in-depth answers and more people get to see them. And we usually have the honor of inviting some cool people to come here and comment on the questions, as is the case today. So for the first question today, and actually not just the first, but like the first three. We have Felipe here with us. Hey,
Hey, Victor.
hey, how are you doing?
Can you share my screen? I have this same question. Just I like
Sure.
scrolling the page while I'm answering. So here we have this question from Eric. He asked us if if it was possible for our Gatsby starter to send newsletter emails, and George initially answered him saying that for FastStore, like we are dealing with the front end, like the visual part of the store. So the back end is still handled by VTEX API. So in order to have this feature working for FastStore, we can have some front end components that sends this information, like the form submission to like the API that handles the newsletter. And he mentioned that there's an existing app for the VTEX IO called Store Newsletter that is 100% compatible, like with our FastStore. And basically, you just need to know how you can plug the front end with the back end of this app. So that's a very valid answer. And I just compliment his answer that saying that recently we had we added a mutation to our FastStore API package called Subscribe to Newsletter that handles this communication to the master data, which is where we store like the information about the user, their email, and we can keep track of people, of clients who have subscribed to the newsletter. And besides adding this mutation to our API, we also added to our starters, both Gatsby and Next.js, a new hook called Using Newsletter that you can plug in, like just like a form element, and send that information to master data. So you can send like their email and their name. And I basically suggested Eric to take a look at these PRs that was created by Larissa. And we, like on our starters, we are still not showing this subscribe to newsletter components because it hasn't been like styled yet. But I think it's something that we are planning to add soon. But if you are curious to know how to integrate these, you can take a look at these two PRs that she created. I think it's good to notice, to remember that for this to work, I think you need to create this master data entity called NL, which stands just the initials for newsletter in your account. So once you there's also here in this pull request, you can find a link of how to create this data entity on master data. And once you do that, you should be able to, once you have this update, you should be able to use that use newsletter hook to easily integrate your form to send this information to master data and subscribe the customer. And then as far as sending the email, like I'm not sure if it's something that can be handled by this existing app, but like the list of customers subscribed will be stored there on master data. I'm not sure how exactly the sending of emails are done, but at least you can save this information now. It's easier to save this information on master data now that we have this hook.
I can just add that information, Felipe. So
yes, please.
For those of you who are new to VTEX, Felipe is one of them. He joined us with the Guava acquisition. It was an awesome thing that happened to our team. Lots of great people joining us. But in VTEX, we always treat customer data inside master data, right? Master data is like our cloud-based, auto-scalable, awesome database that helps us store a bunch of stuff that you use every day. The two most basic things are clients and addresses. So we have a table that's just, it's called CL. It's all clients, and AD is every address they have. So that makes it easier for us to show that. So if a customer exists in that table, we'll have their name, their email, etc. So we can identify them in a purchase. But then there's a checkbox that's like, you can show that in checkout if you want, but you can also add that checkbox in the future by just modifying the customer entry in that table. So I guess that's what the subscribe to newsletter mutation does. It just finds the user in the CL table, and then it just like changes a value from false to true. So like you said, there's no, we don't have a newsletter functionality inside VTEX. So you need to get that database and send it to your own newsletter provider. But at the very least, we can save the opt-in. That's the really important part. We have the email and we have the opt-in, and that really helps.
Thank you, George.
No problem.
And yeah, moving on for the next question. We have this question from from Paulo. And he's saying that he's having some trouble to set up a new Gatsby store. And he's encountering some errors, like while clicking on the checkout button, and he's having this error message about something about cart e-tag. And when I saw his question, I remember that we had this a feature that touched this part of the code, which is this one. It's a feature where we introduce a way to synchronize the cart between like the mini cart and the checkout. Like when you update a cart, the mini cart, you can see this change being reflected when you are on checkout. And then I remember that this is where we introduced this cart e-tag. So I read the pull request, and I noticed that for this feature to work, you need to create a custom app on the checkout, on the order form, so you can store this new field that we created, this cart e-tag. And I thought that what was probably happening here with Paulo was that the account that he's using has not done this step of configuring this custom app. So this is something that is done when you first set up your FastStore, which is install the FastStore plugin, and then run this FastStore setup command. This is the command that automatically creates for you this custom app on checkout. So maybe I thought that maybe that's something that maybe he had skipped, he tried to run this setup command, but he didn't manage to do it. I wasn't able to figure out why yet, because apparently he had all the permissions to do it. And then I asked him to proceed with another approach, which is to install this admin app for FastStore and go through this admin setup. That's also another way to run this setup step. And he did that, but he's still not able to. He's still having this error apparently. So this is something that I'm still discussing with him to try to figure out exactly what's happening. But yeah, I think it's worth to keep in mind that if you are having this problem, you could try doing some of these steps for now. But I'm hoping we can figure out the solution later.
Felipe, I saw one of his messages mentioned that the store wasn't stored in VTEX or wasn't running in VTEX. So
Yeah,
that one.
this one.
The store is not hosted on VTEX. So entirely the point. So I assume, I remember that they're one of our major partners, right? They released this fashion starter as a product. So they're working on their own on that. Like they got our starter and they edited just to make it really a great product for fashion stores. So I assume they're deploying on an infrastructure that's not WebOps, and that's why they possibly don't have a GitHub repository, and maybe that the admin won't work for them. Like they're having some issue deploying, I don't know, to Netlify or Versal.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I assume, but I guess we have to investigate further. One thing that's important, folks, is we give support to stores that are running in our infrastructure. It's hard for us to support every single place where you can deploy FastStore in the world, right? We can't reproduce.
Yeah, that's what I'm planning to ask him next. Is where is it being hosted? Maybe it can help us figure out this.
We can try, of course, but yeah, it's definitely easier when it's running in our infra.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, George. And moving on for the next question. Let me see here. Here. This is from Rafael. He was asking, currently on our documentation, we have a tutorial explaining on how to use the CMS with our Gatsby starter, but we do not have the same for Next.js, our Next.js starter. So he was asking about that, and I explained that indeed for now we do not have a version of our of our Next.js started running together with our headless CMS. But it's something that is on our roadmap, and it's also something we are planning to do differently from like our Gatsby started. That we had one started just with Gatsby, and another started with Gatsby and our headless CMS. So something we are planning to do soon is to just have one repo, one repository that is integrated with the headless CMS. So because it's hard to maintain like different repos. So I explained that it's something that's in our plan to integrate with Next.js. And the good news is that just I think this week we started a pull request to integrate the CMS with our Next.js starter. So something that you people can check out here. And here in this pull request, we are integrating for now the index page, the home page, with the CMS. For us to be able to do this, we had to extract a CMS client package, and we are now working on this. So I think by the end of this week or maybe next week, we'll have this ready. So we are hoping that once we have this more structured, something that we can also present here during office hours. So it's basically just to say that it's coming, and we know that it's important, and we hear you people.
Awesome. It's always great when we can answer the question already with a PR, right?
Yeah, fresh PR.
Oh, there's a question from the chat. If I have skipped this step, I assume that he's talking about the VTEX FastStore setup. Can I run these commands again?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. Yeah. I know that this command basically it's just an easy way to install some other apps that are needed to have your account running FastStore. So you should be able to run it again, and it will be fine.
Yeah, because I think it just installs some things, right?
Yeah, some things that we need, like intelligent search, CMS.
Yeah, if you already have those things installed in your account, no problem. You shouldn't have any problems. So there you go. Awesome. Yeah. Thanks. Now, just one more comment with I think it's good to highlight what you said about we're kind of changing our approach to how we're going to provide starters that are already integrated with VTEX CMS, right? Instead of having two things, we're going to have only one, and we're going for an opt-out approach on the CMS, right? Like by default, you will have the CMS, and your store expects to be integrated with a CMS. If you don't want to, you kind of opt out of the VTEX CMS, right? But that's going to be the default, not the other way around, right? With an extra step to actually set it up.
And opting out means removing code that we provide to you in the starter. Should be pretty easy to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it's probably something that we will also be automated in the future. Probably we will have something on our admin that you'll be able to opt out via
Literally just tick a
there.
checkbox.
Yeah.
Exciting.
We hope so. Great. Awesome. Thanks, Felipe. Those were quite a bit of questions. So thanks a lot. See ya.
No problem. See you.
Awesome. So with that, we finish our Ask the Community section. And just a quick reminder for everyone, when you're creating your questions in VTEX Community, since we're going to look at them and bring them to the office hours, please make our lives a bit easier by adding the tag office hours to your questions. It just lets us know that, okay, this person wants this question to be featured in the office hours. And yeah, we'll bring those questions here to the office hours and answer them live. So there you go. Tag your questions. Awesome. So moving on to our last section for today. And this is the demo section. And today we actually have a demo. This is also, by the way, like we usually have demos from people from VTEX or outside of VTEX. I'm gonna talk a bit more about that after the demo. But today's demo is from me. It's by me. It's regarding the SKU selector. You might have seen that on the already popped up in the release notes, right? Some SKU selector related stuff. So what I'm going to show you is how the SKU selector actually works, right? How it's working, how it was implemented, because I think there were some decisions that we made that could be useful, and I think you will find it sort of interesting. All right, so first off, I'm going to show the SKU selector actually working so that you know how it looks like, right? So this is on here is my VS Code. I guess the size, it looks like the size is good. This is VS Code, and what I have opened here are the FastStore repo and the Next.js. Gatsby Store is also here, but I usually work like this with FastStore and then those two. But anyway, Next.js store. I'm going to use this as a starting point. I only made one small change to this branch, which is change the actual store where I'm pulling data from. This is just because in our default account, store framework account, we don't have products that have SKU variations yet. So that's why if you go to our starters, you will not see the SKU selector component, but it's actually there. It's in the page, but it won't show because we don't have products that have SKU variations. So I'm just changing it and pulling the data from a different account, just as you would do as well in your accounts. This will probably be different from store components or store framework. Anyway, that's the only change I made, nothing else. This is exactly like the main branch. So I'm just going to run yarn develop to spin up the store locally, right? And there we go. Next.js is really quick to fire things up. So there we go. We have the URL, localhost 3000, which is right here. Okay. Here I'm in a page of classic shoes. If you've been working with the store framework, you probably know these products because they come from store components. But anyway, this is the component that I was meaning to show. Let me just make this a bit easier to see. This is the SKU selector, as you expect. Just notice something. Oh yeah, I can hide this. Just notice that when our product SKU URLs work a bit different in FastStore than they used to do in Store Framework, right? If you look into our URL, we now have slash the name of the product, right? The product slug, and then we have a dash and the SKU number for the product and /p, right? That's different because in the Store Framework we used to have just a the slug of the product /p and then a query string, right? That was something. Oh, okay. This view is kind of bad to show, so I'm gonna open a random document here just to write. Okay. So we now have something like this, right? Slug. Let me just move this. Okay, makes it easy for me. We have like slug and then SKUID slash P, right? Before we had this slug slash P and then query string that was like SKUID equals. This is important because this fundamentally changes the way we handle product pages, right? We used to have kind of a default product page, and then we like every time you change the SKU, the product page stays the same. We're just like kind of changing the content, but the page was the same. Now, what we're doing is every single SKU has a different page, all right? So this is important because you will notice that when we change the SKU here, for example, I'm looking at a white shoe and we have size 41 and 42. When we change to 42, you will notice that I actually navigated to a different page. Now I'm at classic shoes 36, just to make it easier. Now I'm in this URL, right? And if I change it back to 41, I'm at this URL. You can, oops, I got the full URL, but anyway, like you can see that we're just changing this ID, but it's a completely different page, right? Because we are changing the actual URL and navigating to a different page. Awesome. Okay, so that's basically like the base. That's the basic idea of how the SKU selector works. We just have this selectors for you to choose a color, change the size. This is dynamic, right? So for this product, we have color and size, but you would go for any product that you want, just as you expect. And then every time you change this, like every time you change the selected SKU, you're gonna navigate. Okay, so that's the basic way this component works. And to actually use it, for now, we're adding it right here in the here section, product details. We have this component right here. Where is it? This one, selectors. This selectors component, okay? And this selectors component is just like render SKU selectors based on an array of available variations, right? Like what are the available variations for the current SKU that I'm looking at, okay? And then what was pretty interesting while developing this was the idea of having an SKU selector. Like you can kind of boil it down to this. Like I'm showing a product, right? That product has different SKU variations, right? So for example, with shoes, we have color and size. So you have, okay, classic shoe 36 because that's the SKU I'm looking at. Forget the SKU, just look at the actual classic shoes, the product. That product has some SKUs, right? And for each of those SKUs, you associate a pair of color and size. Okay, so that's, and you need something like you need to create a component that is capable of like given the product that I'm showing, show me the possible values for each of those two properties, color and size in our case. And every time I change this, you need to sort of match, right? For example, I change the color to red. You need to take me to a product that matches, like, okay, color is red and the size is the value that is selected right now. Like, for example, white here, if I change to 41, it's gonna match me with some SKU that is from this product, classic shoe, that matches color white and size 41. And like we need to kind of figure out, like, okay, given this pair of values, where should I go? Where should I take the user, right? And that's kind of the I think that's the kind of simple way to describe what an SKU selector actually does. And then like from that, what we did was, okay, we just came here in the Next.js store code and started implementing this selectors component, right? The idea here is that, all right, in the product details component, I'm asking for information about the product, right? I have this product details fragment, and it fetches a bunch of stuff. This was not here. Actually, this was not here. It didn't exist. So we only had like this, and there is a property that's called has variant that you can ask for. And then inside has variant, you can like fetch the information for each of the SKU variations for a given product. Okay. And then the way we were going was like, okay, I just fetch all of the data for all of the variations. And then here in the front end, like inside this selectors component, I can manipulate that data in order for me to actually be able to make those decisions. Like, okay, given that I'm color white and size 41, where should I go? Right? Because I think that the most important part is given the par, like given the values for color and size, take me somewhere, like take me to a given URL, right? How can you make that mapping? And the path we were going on, and I think that might be something that you should always keep an eye out for, is we were cramming all of that implementation, like all of the logic that is needed to actually make that work inside this component. Like we created a separate file, this one, SKU variants, which still exists, but you can see that this file only has two functions, right? The get SKU slug, which does that thing like, okay, you give me the values, I give you where should you go, and navigate to SKU, which is simply just tell me where I should go, and I go there. Okay, we just have these two functions, but this file used to be like pretty big, and it had a lot of logic in it and a lot of data handling, like getting the data and then changing how it's structured, and then creating a map between, okay, if I have this values, I need to go to this URL. And all of that is kind of like expensive to do. It was kind of expensive because we're looking at like the way that this is structured is sort of like a tree, kind of like a graph. So given the variations. So it's not like it's very expensive to like iterate over everything and organize the data the way in which it's useful for you to render in the front end. So what we did was we looked at it and said, okay, doing all of this in the front end is going to be too expensive. So let's move as much as we can to the back end, right? To our FastStore API. So, and here in packages API, this is the actual code for the FastStore, right? What we did was we added new properties to our schema, and I have the graphical here just to show you. But all of like this part, SKU variants, all of this bit did not exist. Like this was not in FastStore API, and we moved all of that logic, all of that processing things that we needed to do to FastStore API. And then came up with this. Like we added a new field inside of this is variant called SKU variants. And here you can ask for the active variations for a product, all variations by name, this kind of neat data structure, a slugs map, which is simply a hash map, and available variations. So to get like, given the current state of the SKU selector, what are the available options that I have to show? Because this cuts a lot of work from us. This enables us to basically, given that you're rendering the page for one single SKU, you just ask for these fields, get that data, and you can render an SKU selector. And it's going to be fast because the amount of work that you're doing in the front end is very little, because you just need to fetch that data, like get it in the front end, and then when you click to navigate, what is taking quite a while here is the actual navigation. This is probably more due to my internet than the actual like computing things, because when we change the SKU here, we're pretty much just looking at a hash map, given the color and the size. What's the slug? So what's the URL I have to go to, right? So this is why we created this slugs map thing. And basically, to like kind of sort it up, like sum things up, because I talked a lot. The main takeaways here are when you have to implement a component that's kind of complex, like it's not as simple as just showing something or making a quick calculation and then showing the result, but you actually have like pretty complex logic. It's not worth it to like have all of that in the front end, right? Because then your front end becomes kind of like every time that you need to render that component, it's going to be expensive because you have to calculate a lot of stuff multiple times. So what we try to achieve here is we do the least amount of work possible in the front end, and we also try to optimize for the operations that we do most commonly, right? So for example, what we do a lot in the SQL selector is change the value. And every time I change the value, I need to know, okay, where should I navigate to, right? Because I need to navigate. That's why we created a data structure such as this, because it enables us to, like, given the current state, find where should we go. Given the current state, where should we go? Given the current state, where should we go? And we can do this. If you've ever seen our hash map before, you can do this in like big O of 1. So this is constant. uh, and like that's awesome, right? And then moving all of this to the API, make sure that our front end is not heavy. We are doing all of this pre-processing in the server. And when you want to implement your own SQL selector, if you don't want to use ours, like our own SQL selector component, you can just add these fields to your product query on your products page and get all of it. Like that's what you get. Like you get the information for the active variations. What are the currently selected variations? This enables you to know like what's the current state of the SQL selector. You can get all of the variations available or like indexed by name, right? So color and size here, for example, you can get all of the possible values for color, all of the possible values for size. Then we have this slugs map, which is just to optimize for the operation of if I change the state, where should I go? You can do this in constant time, so it's pretty fast. And here you can get like all of the available variations given the current state of the SQL selector. So, for example, here we know that we're asking this field for this particular product. So the return type for available variations is what enables us to do this transition here. For example, if I change the selected color here, I have a new size that is actually available. To make this like, okay, if I change to here, I need to update the size. All of this comes kind of ready for you every time you ask for it in the API, just by using this available variations field. Okay, so definitely take a look into how these queries work. Again, this was in the release notes, so you can see the actual PRs and how all of this was implemented. I try to make I try to add a few comments that might help you to understand how the code works, because admittedly, it's not very, like, it's sort of complex, like everything that you need to do, because it's a lot of data manipulation. You can find all of this here, SKU variants. This is inside the FastStore API package. So, for example, here I say why we use the slugs map. This is all of the auxiliary functions that we use. How can we sort the variants? Get the variants in a formatted state. So all of this is to show that sometimes it's just worth it to move all of this expensive calculation to the backend so that you don't have to do that in the front end. You can keep your store quick while still doing complex things, but in the server side, right? So we added this to FastStore API so that you can easily implement your own SQL selector. If you don't want to use ours, we are already giving you our own implementation, but you can customize it the way you want. And that might also go for like every time that you, I think it's like a good thing to keep in mind. Every time that you're implementing something and the code gets a bit, you notice that you're making some expensive stuff in the front end. Maybe consider implementing all of that in a resolver, like in a GraphQL resolver, instead of just having all of that in the front end, right? One of the concepts that we use when developing FastStore was the idea of backends for front end, right? BFF. Um, if you've never heard of it, definitely look it up. It's definitely worth it. But the idea is you pretty much like build your backend, in our case, like our GraphQL layer, for your front end with exactly that idea. Like everything that is expensive, everything that is might be heavy to do, I can just do it in the GraphQL layer, and it saves time in the like in your actual website code. Okay, so I know that this was kind of all over the place. I hope it helped in some way. Maybe give you some insight into like how do we think about implementing these new components? How do we actually implement them? Where things are? Because I showed you some of the code in FastStore API, and also in like the actual store in our next startup. Just one thing: all of this SKU selector that currently lives inside of our next starter will be added to FastStore UI as well. Okay, so it's going to be even easier for you to just import it into your store and use it from there. Okay, I guess that's all for me. That's all for this demo. I know that I ran a bit long, but again, I hope it was useful for everyone. I also would like some feedback for you to know, like for us to know, like how technical do you want us to get in these demos? Because sometimes I'm not quite sure, like what you guys want to see. Like, do you want to keep seeing like this deep dives into like technical stuff? I don't know, maybe telling you about why we chose to implement something using a hash map. Uh, to optimize for a certain operation. I don't know if everyone like liked that kind of stuff, but anyway, I think it's pretty cool to know. So give us some feedback. And also, of course, this demo is not only meant to be like from people from VTEX, right? This is the whole office hours thing is for the community. So the demo section is also for the community. So I'm inviting all of you to come here to the office hours, present your own demos, right? Maybe I don't know. You were working on a project and it just went live, and you want to tell everyone. You're gonna show us like the cool things that you had to solve. Um, Maybe you solved some problem, some different like some difficult problem with some creative way. Kind of like the SKU selector I showed. Like maybe you implemented your own SKU selector. I don't know. Like I know that you're doing some pretty awesome stuff with all the liberties that we give you with FastStore. So we would love to see those things being made. Okay. So here's my invite. Go to community.vtex.com/office hours beta, fill out the form, submit your demos. We're going to contact you and make it happen here. Okay. So that's it. And that's all we have for you today. Pretty long office hours. Hope everyone enjoyed. And well, we'll see you 2 weeks from now. Okay. Bye. See you next time.